Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining this very exciting event of talking about the Center for Energy. I've taken on this role a few months ago, and I have to admit that I'm still forming the team and getting exposed as I go to very exciting research areas and interdisciplinary research areas from my colleagues. So just really to build on what Libby and Matt have been talking about. Oh, my computer's been absolutely funny today, so excuse me for that. Okay, so we are a group of social scientists and also collaborate with our colleagues from SAGE and work within current challenges globally and in the region that brings our research together. So we are working under the challenges of understanding that 50% of the world population now is moving into cities, and by 2050, which is the target really to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions, is 80% will be living in cities, which is a major challenge here for climate change, urban heat islands, and also the formation of more complex and more changing patterns of occupancy of buildings. And also working under the main idea that when we reduce the use of energy in one sector, we might go into the law of unintended consequences of using energy in another, and how to get a balancing act with that. So we've seen that in instances, for instance, where there were refurbishments of buildings for thermal envelopes, that these thermal envelopes can sometimes actually lead to the use of air conditioning because the natural ventilation hasn't been studied well, or we are using cool lights like LED lights, but because of that, occupants become a little bit lazier in dealing with opening curtains in the buildings. So there are this law of unintended consequences really brings forward the role of social science in the debate around climate change. Also understanding that for any development, you need to use more energy, but that energy has to be less polluting. So again, balancing acts between what kind of renewable energies do we introduce and how we introduce them on our buildings and in the built environment and in the natural environment as well. Regionally, it's quite challenging, but also a good opportunity to work with local communities. Recently, I think a few months ago, the Inequality Briefing Organization looked at the number of cities that are the poorest in Europe. And as you can see here, the UK has 9 out of 10 of those cities, with only 1 in the Netherlands. And there is quite an interesting disparity here because London is featured as one of the most, as you can see here, the richest city, while the other cities in the UK do not feature on this list at all. Regionally as well, the issues of fuel poverty form also some of the interesting explorations that we need to work with. So most of the built environment, the built heritage and built environment is performing at a very low energy performance rating band, which is band E. And the government's goal is really to move that for the region from band E to band C by 2030, which is quite ambitious as well. And our university buildings will feature in that as well. So we work with political issues globally, and we look at whose land, whose resources, and the sovereignty of resources and land use. And it's quite interesting to see that countries like Austria complaining that, for instance, the neighboring German renewable energy revolution is causing problems in Austria, and that they have to comply with buying this excess from Germany, and this is actually affecting policies in Austria. Also, there is issues with the physical limits of working on one globe, one environment for everybody, and looking at when we suggest that we want to use more wind energy generation worldwide, that the areas and the geographical areas that allow us to do so are actually decreasing in number because we've utilized all what we could. But it's not always a very negative story, because also the use of renewables has shown some uptake in communities, and we can see that it's also been seen as an economic opportunity to increase income. So if you look at this statistic, came from the USA, that a farmer using just 2 turbines or some of the photovoltaics, of course, using photovoltaics like that and spreading it on the land means we're reducing areas that were used for producing food. So again, some balances there, but you can see that wind turbines are absolutely fine, uses less of the land and produces about tenfold more the income that was produced from farming, while still allowing farming to take place. So in this group, we also look at how producing energy from one resource can generate waste and byproducts from other resources and change how the communities engage with using those energy systems. We also know that on the positive side, that adopting decentralized energy system encourages energy citizenship, encouraging communities to take control of how to deal with those systems. And I think there is something for the university as well to learn from that it's not just about spreading photovoltaics on our roofs, but it's also about an educational process to how to manage the use of energy in our buildings as well. We also know that there is an uptake and real positive attitude towards renewables as communities reject the inclusion of more nuclear plants. There is social research that proves that societies are actually less individualistic when they work and try to manage renewable resources. And I think there is an opportunity for us as well to build on that. The renewable resources are not facing the same uptake and same acceptance from communities. So we can see that the photovoltaics, because they've been among us for a very long time and their short payback period has seen that communities are more proactive in their uptake and more positive about it. But we also know that that the renewable energy is intermittent and it requires that we engage with them in a different way than we deal with the electricity from grids. So it's not really a plug and forget kind of technology. Community incentivization as well is one of the things that we research, and how the transparency, the social justice side of it works, and whether incentivization money from companies actually is needed, because there is now research that suggests that if communities are pro renewable energy, then they don't really need that kind of bribing to accept it. But it's another area of research. So here are some of the themes that we are looking at the moment. We're not just looking at social justice and energy distribution, but we're also looking at using some of our technical knowledge in assessing how these societal issues work. So we're looking at simulating human behavior in buildings and in urban environments in both contexts, and looking at organizational wrongdoing, ethical-based discrimination in energy distribution. We're also looking at economic geographies and integrating qualitative and quantitative spatial data and energy consumption. And what is the impact of diversification of diversification of energy sources on social perceptions. So our research as a group is also looking at how to implement this kind of knowledge in the regional social areas. So this is research by my colleague Gareth Powell, looking at the energy use in a community in Gateshead in collaboration with Northern Network Gas. And here's some of my research looking in collaboration with Sunderland Trust, the NHS Trust, looking at equity and justice and providing energy and how that actually has an implication on the strategies of refurbishing the NHS estate, and looking at monitoring their energy use and how we can provide justice for the healthy and less healthy occupants of the building. And you can see here that because it hasn't been studied before, that actually we are consuming more than what we need and producing very hot environments in our hospitals in the Northeast, which needs to be managed. Okay, research into teaching is very important, and this is just one of the demonstrations that how we've taken those ideas and what we've learned from researching energy and users into the design studio. And it's been a delight because our students in architecture just won the National Student Undergraduate Award for the design of healthcare buildings, and they also won the 2 other awards for the highest commended. So they've taken all the awards nationally for doing so. And this is a design studio that is very peculiar because it combines understanding of how energy is used and how that helps dementia patients to have less agitation in the rooms and in the spaces they require. So this is looking at the CAF site, and this is a live project, and we work with consultants from the NHS on that, and the local practice, which is called medical architecture, and we produce urban performance simulations like the ones you've seen here, looking at how the wind moves around building. So we can also provide better environments for dementia patients and allow them to use the indoors and outdoors more rather than being imprisoned inside the building, really. And this, what you're looking at here, looks at how the wind movement and solar movement around the building actually shapes the building. So we can integrate photovoltaics and other renewable energies on the building. Just to give you a taste of what really we're doing there. Right, so at the moment, there are more questions than answers, and this is really an exciting time to work with colleagues. So if anyone here wants to join this team, please get in touch with me, and that would be really great to have you and work with you. So it's not about just energy resources and the energy intensity of that resource, but it's really understanding how these renewables change our habits as users in the home and in the workplace, and how corporate social responsibility can also have a role to play. What happens when we decommission all of those renewable technologies? That's also other questions to ask. the group also looks at social perceptions policy, as I've explained, and how social perceptions can affect the mobilization of government policy and vice versa, and the need to move too fast in adopting a mix of energy, but at the same time moving slowly and understanding the implications on land and on people by adopting this technology. Also looking at transparency and reversibility of our decisions. Yes, I'm finishing. So finally, taking that into teaching and making a real contribution to our students and generating this new generation that will move confidently and knowledgeably into decision making and helping policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Neveen. Do we have any questions from the chat or the audience? If we don't, I had a question about the Austria-Germany situation.
Yeah.
Do you think that will clear up as technology advances and Germany has the ability to store its excess energy?
Well, if you want a technical answer to that, Germany has a strange problem. They have a complete dissection between their north production and the south production, and the grid is not connected. So the minute they sort this technology problem out, before they move on to storage, then there will be more social distribution of that energy generated, and Austria will have less of it. But the reason why I've put that up is that just to say that really that law of unintended consequences, that when you produce a lot of energy somewhere, when you follow strategies of refurbishing your buildings with very tight envelopes and things like that, without really understanding what are the implications of this, then the balance of the success of these strategies becomes quite questionable.
I think Chris Harris has a question, Neveen. What are your thoughts on how we might change the way we live, work and travel in response to currently available renewable energy?
Well, that's a big question. That's a full 5 years research question. I'll try maybe to give some answers to this one.
Maybe Chris could get in touch with you afterwards.
Yeah, but really, Chris, the use of renewable energy, because it's intermittent, will require a lot of our direct involvement with when and how to use it. So just very briefly, if you're looking at photovoltaics, for instance, they produce and without recourse to storage of energy, which is another issue because those batteries as well have a limited lifespan. So that's again going to tip the argument against storage. So if we're looking at photovoltaics, they're producing energy in the morning. So we need to make sure that most of this energy is being used on site and on the spot, which makes it very good for university use, for instance, but quite different when you're looking at housing, because sometimes the occupants are not there, and so on. But at the same time, the good thing is renewables will make us, I think, more cohesive as a society, because it would require a lot of personal input in how they're managed and how the energy is used from them. But yes, happy to take this forward, Chris.
Yeah, I think we're